What if the very stars that guide us hold within them a tale of vanity, wrath, and sacrifice? Look up. There, near Perseus and Cassiopeia, hangs Andromeda, forever bound to the heavens. But before she ascended, she was once a mortal princess, whose fate intertwined with divine fury. Who was this woman chained to the rocks, and what led to her tragic sacrifice? Andromeda, daughter of King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia, was born into a kingdom of golden sands and teeming ports, Ethiopia, a land of mythic splendor. But her mother's pride would be their undoing. Cassiopeia, radiant as the dawn, dared to claim her beauty eclipsed even the Nereids, Poseidon's sea nymphs. Such hubris never goes unpunished. The gods do not suffer mortal arrogance lightly. Poseidon's wrath surged forth, a monstrous wave of retribution. The sea itself rose against Ethiopia, swallowing ships, drowning fields, and leaving famine in its wake. But the worst was yet to come. From the depths slithered Cetus, a beast of scales and hunger, its maw wide enough to devour whole villages. The oracle's decree was ruthless. Only the sacrifice of the princess could appease the sea god. And so Andromeda was led to the cliffs, betrayed by her own blood. Stripped of her jewels, her dignity, Andromeda was shackled to the stone, the cold metal biting into her wrists. The tides lapped hungrily at her feet, whispering of the horror to come. Could any mortal escape such a fate? The people watched from afar. Some wept, others turned away. Cassiopeia's boast had doomed her daughter, yet the queen's eyes remained dry. Was it guilt that hardened her heart, or the cruel logic of kingship? Dawn broke, and with it, the glint of Cetus' spines cresting the waves. Andromeda closed her eyes, bracing for the end. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Far above, a shadow streaked across the sky, a man with winged sandals, carrying a burden that could turn the tide. Perseus, fresh from slaying Medusa, hovered midair. His eyes locked onto the princess, not as prey, but as salvation. The hero descended, his voice cutting through the wind. What cruel hand binds you here? The answer would ignite a battle beyond mortal reckoning. Perseus was born under extraordinary circumstances. Zeus's hove had visited his mother Dana as a shower of gold, defying the bronze tower where her father Acrisius imprisoned her. Exiled as an infant with his mother, Perseus grew into a hero marked by destiny. His quest to slay Medusa was no simple feat. Armed with gifts from the gods, winged sandals from Hermes, a mirrored shield from Athena, he navigated treachery and monstrous siblings to claim the Gorgon's head. The cunning of Perseus was as sharp as his blade. Approaching Medusa's lair backward, guided only by reflections, he struck true. The Gorgon's head rolled, her serpent hair still hissing. From her neck sprang Pegasus, the winged stallion, and Chrysaor, the golden giant. Perseus fled, the vengeful sister's wails echoing behind him. Victorious yet restless, Perseus soared over the Libyan sands, Medusa's blood dripping to birth venomous serpents below. His journey home was interrupted by a distant cry, not of monsters, but of a maiden chained to jagged cliffs. The sight of Andromeda, her ebony skin glistening against the rocks, halted him mid-flight. Cetus, the sea beast, surged toward Andromeda, its maw gaping. Perseus dove like a thunderbolt, heart sword gleaming. But brute force alone wouldn't suffice. This demanded strategy. Remembering the power in his satchel, he grinned. Medusa's head, still potent, would be his secret weapon. The battle was brief but brutal. As Cetus lunged, Perseus yanked the Gorgon's head aloft. The monster's roar turned to stone mid-snap, its body freezing into a grotesque reef. Silence fell. Andromeda, trembling, met her savior's eyes, gratitude and dread intertwined. King Cepheus, witnessing his daughter's rescue, clasped Perseus's arm. "Name your reward," he implored. Perseus didn't hesitate. Andromeda's hand. The king paled. She was promised to Phineus. But oaths made under duress meant little to a hero who defied gods. The wedding feast became a battleground. Phineus stormed in, spear aloft, accusing Perseus of theft. The hero sighed. Another head for the collection. Unwrapping Medusa's gaze, he turned his rival to cold marble. Andromeda gasped, but Perseus merely wiped his hands. No more delays. As dawn gilded Ethiopia's towers, Perseus and Andromeda departed. Her chains were gone, but new bonds formed. Promises, a shared throne, a dynasty yet unborn. Behind them, the stone remnants of their past stood silent. Ahead, the stars waited to claim their legends. With their enemies vanquished, the couple journeyed to Tiryns, where Perseus claimed his birthright. Andromeda, now queen, bore him 6 children, including Perses, whose descendants would one day rule Persia. Unlike the tragic heroines of other myths, Andromeda thrived, her intelligence shining as she advised Perseus in matters of state. Together, they transformed Tiryns into a beacon of prosperity, its bronze gates gleaming under the Mediterranean sun. Yet their greatest legacy wasn't earthly. After death, Athena placed them among the stars, Andromeda as a constellation forever stretching toward Perseus, who eternally grips Medusa's head. Cassiopeia, the boastful queen, was condemned to circle the celestial pole, half the year upside down. Even Cetus found his place in the heavens, frozen mid-roar near Eridanus' river of stars. Their myth echoed through antiquity. Euripides wrote of Andromeda's sacrifice. Sophocles imagined her lament. Artists carved their story onto temple pediments. Perseus triumphant, Andromeda's chains broken. In Pompeii's ruins, frescoes still show her with arms outstretched, sea spray glittering like trapped starlight on her skin. Always, the moment chosen was not the rescue, but the breath before, the tension of fate unraveling. The Victorians adored the myth's darker edges. Burne-Jones painted Andromeda not as a victim, but as a vision of eerie calm, her gaze meeting the viewer while the dragon's scales shimmer like poisoned jewels. Leighton gave Perseus a god's physique, his muscles straining as he hovers midair, a Victorian ideal of masculine heroism. But contradictions linger. Why did artists, mostly men, fixate on Andromeda's bound form? Freud would later call it the male gaze immortalized. Even her name, ruler of men, hints at power she rarely wields in depictions. Perhaps true rebellion lies in her survival. Unlike Medusa, she lived to become a queen, mother, and cosmic legend. Their constellation still whispers secrets. On autumn nights, if you trace the line from Perseus' sword to Andromeda's chains, you'll find the Andromeda Galaxy, a spiral of 1 trillion stars. Fitting for a myth that spiraled far beyond Greece, inspiring Melville's whales, Laforgue's satires, even Murdoch's LSD-fueled visions in The Sea, the Sea. What endures isn't just the rescue, but the quiet after. The kingdom built, the children raised, the stars claimed. When you next see Andromeda's constellation, remember, she's not just chained. She's ascending. The myth of Andromeda didn't vanish with antiquity. It shapeshifted. Across medieval Europe, a new champion emerged. St. George, sword raised against a dragon, rescuing a maiden in distress. The parallels are unmistakable. Divine punishments, sacrificial terror, heroic intervention. But why did this narrative endure? Unlike Andromeda, St. George Princess remained nameless, a silent prize rather than a tragic figure. The Christianized version erased the divine wrath of Poseidon, replacing it with paganism's defeat. Yet the bones were the same: beauty in peril, monstrosity vanquished, masculinity triumphant. Artists fused the myths. Perseus gained Pegasus, though the Greeks never gave him wings. St. George absorbed Andromeda's chains, his dragon slithering where Cetus once swam in. These weren't accidents. They were deliberate revisions, smoothing pagan edges into Christian parables. But Andromeda paid a price. Ovid called her Ethiopian, dark-skinned, royal, African. Yet Renaissance brushes whitened her, twisting chains into symbols of purity, not punishment. Why erase her origin? Was her rescue only heroic if she mirrored Europe's ideal? The dragon evolved too. Cetus was chaos, but St. George's beast became sin itself: forked tongue, hellfire breath. Monsters reflect their slayer's fears. Andromeda's ordeal was cosmic justice. George was moral crusade. Both demanded maidenhood as collateral. Critics whisper, these myths aren't about rescue, but possession. Andromeda never speaks. George Princess fades into his legend. The veneer of charity, as scholar Adrian Munich called it. Heroism masking domination. Why must virtue always wear a sword? Yet we retell them. Not just for the thrill, but for the catharsis of order over chaos, light over dark. But what if the maiden's chains aren't broken, just swapped? What if the dragon isn't slain, but waiting? The stars still whisper. Andromeda, Perseus, Cetus, forever fixed in the sky. But look closer. Who really holds the power? The hero with the blade? The gods who demand sacrifice? Or the princess, who outlasted them all? The next time you hear "Once Upon a Dragon," ask yourself, whose voice is missing?